Hi everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive onto the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have another fantastic show for you this week. It is another installment of Kino Lorber Mania. It is that very special time of the month where we get to dive into anything and everything in the wonderful world of Kino Lorber, Kino Studio Classics, and all their various imprints. But first, we also have titles from Radiance Films, Lionsgate Limited, movies fresh from theaters, TV shows, a little bit of something for everyone. As always, I'll try to give as broad of an overview as possible while still giving you everything you need to know. But if you need more of a deep dive into any specific title, check out GeekVibesNation.com within a week or two of this video going live, and you should find a written review for most of the titles being covered, just for that little extra insight. If you see anything you want to purchase and you want to support the show, make sure to check out the description of this video and make your purchases using those links, specifically the Movie Zing links, but any of them are helpful. That just helps support the show a little bit. It doesn't mean that we are getting enough money for like a new car or anything. I'm just hoping to get enough money to send my beloved editor Anya some gas money. But I have seen a few of you use those links. I cannot see who is buying stuff, but I have been able to see some of the purchases being made. It's really cool seeing some of the titles that you guys are purchasing. So I really appreciate those who have started doing that recently.
Why, thank you.
But enough of my rambling. Let's get to why you're here. The movies, the new disc. Let's start off with one of my favorite titles from last year, new from Searchlight Pictures. It is the 4K Ultra HD release of Is This Thing On? Once again, 4K Ultra HD. Very excited. Very rare for a Searchlight Pictures title, but I was thrilled that this got that nod. Director Bradley Cooper following up A Star Is Born and Maestro with something a little lighter, but still has a little bit of dramatic heft. If you have watched my show any length of time, you'll know I love adult dramas, and I feel that they are a dying breed amongst the studios. So it's no surprise that this hit me so hard. It is about a couple, Will Arnett and Laura Dern, who at the very beginning of the movie, they have decided that they are going to split up. Upon this major life-altering thing, it's not that like anyone cheated or anything. It's just kind of the slow decline and separation of two people who haven't been really clicking, and they've just kind of fallen like into a rut, and they've decided to split. But whenever this happens, Will Arnett's character, he decides to take up stand-up comedy. And through this, he's like not very good at first, but he becomes like more engaged in life overall, and he really starts to get like a new appreciation for like just his family and his life, and it really gets him engaged. And it helps him start to potentially find a road back to his wife, which Laura Dern, thankfully, is not just treated as like a character that you can kind of just put away for scenes at a time and just check in with as you need. She's actually given a fully developed arc too, which is one of my favorite aspects of this movie, and just her journey of like losing some of like her identity whenever she was younger in regards to her career, and just kind of that just really complex but understandable place like whenever you get older and things just start to settle, and you want to not just like fall into old habits, and you want to keep appreciating one another and everything. That's really what this movie is about. Yes, it is about a man like getting into the stand-up comedy scene, but it is mostly about two people like learning to reconnect with one another and reconnect with themselves and like have that passion for life. So I really loved it. Like I said, like probably in my top 10 of last year. And it is a really surprising turn from Bradley Cooper, given his more like loftier ambitions in the past. But I think this was kind of a nice reset after kind of the more awards season focused movies of his past couple of efforts. This one's really a special one. Best dramatic performance from Will Arnett yet. Laura Dern gives one of her better performances in recent years just because she hasn't had a lot of more leading type roles. So really glad to see them both here, and the ensemble's really great. And if that doesn't sell you, Bradley Cooper has a part in here as a character named Balls. So if that's not enough to get you to watch this movie, I don't know what will. If you need to sample this, I think this will be hitting Hulu on the 20th of March. So check that out if you need to sample it. But if you like it, it is on 4K and it looks great. Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos audio. It's really rich, vibrant, just like really nice textures. It's a really nice looking film, even with it being more of a talky character drama. Dramedy. And the Atmos track also similarly not super like bombastic, but it's nicely immersive, especially whenever you are in those like comedy clubs and you hear like crowd chatter coming from all different directions and stuff. You feel very like present in this specific space. So really glad that this got the 4K nod. And you get one special feature. It is a 13-minute making of supplement. Nothing too in depth, but at least it's something. But the main thing is the movie, which is great. So is this thing on? If anything, if you love like a human adult dramedies, this one I think will like scratch that itch for you. It's pretty special, and make sure to check it out. I believe there's no standalone Blu-ray, so if you want the Blu-ray, you will need to get this 4K combo pack, which does have the Blu-ray included in it. It's a kind of a special case that some studios have been experimenting with, but I just want to note that. So it's the 4K, or I think you can maybe get a DVD, or maybe it's just 4K only physical media with the Blu-ray as terms of physical options. But at least you're getting a 4K, so check it out. Searchlight Pictures. It's a great release.
$15 cover.
To get a drink?
Hey.
Yeah.
How come she didn't have to pay $15?
She signed up for the open mic.
Look at me. I kind of look like the guy who tells you the Ferris wheel doesn't work at the amusement park.
I gotta date better men. My ex wouldn't let me touch his Magic the Gathering cards.
I'm gonna shake it up tonight. So let's put your hands together for Alex Novak.
I think I'm getting a divorce. What tipped me off was that I'm living in an apartment on my own, and my wife and kids don't live there. That was probably the biggest clue.
Returning to 4K from Lionsgate Limited, we have a new 4K release of Oliver Stone's The Doors, starring Val Kilmer as Jim Morrison, the famous singer of The Doors. So I don't really think I need to really dive deep into what this movie is about. It's about The Doors.
Oh. Door City over here.
So if you know anything about them and their journey, this is a dramatized version, and Val Kilmer is pretty great as Jim Morrison. This is one that had kind of escaped me. I'd had the Blu-ray for a couple of years now. I picked it up pretty cheaply from Target a while back, but I hadn't got around to watching it. So getting this new 4K, which I hadn't owned this on 4K previously, it was cool to have that be my first viewing. This is a theatrical cut, which is different from the last 4K, which included a so-called director's cut, but Oliver Stone has a new introduction, and he reaffirms that the theatrical cut is his actual preferred cut of the movie. Not that it's like super different from what I have heard, but it is only the theatrical cut on this specific 4K release. I enjoyed the movie. It's pretty. It's not my favorite Oliver Stone movie, and it has kind of a lethargic pace at time. But I mostly was kind of transfixed by the Val Kilmer performance. I did like Meg Ryan in this too, and then there's some other ensemble players that do a nice job. It's a very I would see echoes of what Stone would do with like Natural Born Killers in terms of some of the more psychedelic stuff going on. But it makes sense for kind of like some of the more drug fueled scenes in this movie and kind of more trippy things. Him being the Lizard King and all. But overall, pretty solid movie. In the theatrical cut, I thought it was fine. And in terms of this 4K, like I said, I cannot really judge this based on the previous 4K because I do not own that. But based on what I'm seeing, this is a different transfer, and it's good. I don't think it's like a mind-blowing experience. I think like the encoding's pretty solid, and there's some nice textures and everything. What I was kind of more concerned about is the colors, because compared to the previous 4K release, the Blu-ray release in this one is remastered, and I actually seem to kind of prefer the colors on the Blu-ray compared to the 4K release that is Dolby Vision, which seemed just a tad muted. I'm not sure if maybe there's some kind of issue with the color space on the new Lionsgate Limited 4K, or if it's just like a Dolby Vision effect of just how it impacts the colors. It's not like an eyesore or anything. It still looks really nice, and due to like kind of the stylistic elements of this movie, it's not super obvious, like if you're not judging one disc like right side by side to another, how like kind of the difference of the colors. But I do think overall I do prefer the colors of the Blu-ray. But the 4K disc is quite solid, and it also comes with some new special features to accompany the audiovisual presentation. I want to mention first that this does have a Dolby Atmos track. Sounds really good, especially when you're dealing with a movie that is about like a famous band and a musician and everything. You want that to have really like big immersive sound, and that sounds really great. And then in terms of the new special features, you get that new 2-minute intro from Oliver Stone that I mentioned. You get another new 27-minute featurette that looks back at Val Kilmer as in his performance as Jim Morrison, and you get some of insights from Val Kilmer's kids, which is cool. And then you get archival featurettes, including a commentary track, different featurettes, deleted scenes, interviews, and whatnot. It is available in this nice steelbook that I've already showed off. It's kind of trippy. This is only available exclusively through LionsGateLimited.com. So if you have been trying to build up a cart to reach the free shipping threshold, this isn't a bad one to throw on if you're a fan of the movie. It does, like I said, get some nice new special features. But yeah, I'm not sure if you like it's a necessary upgrade from the previous 4K release if you already have it. But if you don't, you get some cool special features on here that you won't get elsewhere, and then you get the steelbook and all that kind of stuff. So if you're a fan of the movie and you don't own it on 4K, this Lionsgate Limited release is fairly solid. And then yeah, overall, Oliver Stone's The Doors, not his best movie, but still a solid entry in his filmography, and worth it just to see Val Kilmer in his prime, inhabiting this character so impressively. So The Doors on 4K, make sure to check that out.
Mr. Morrison, I'd like to go make a record. Sure, why not?
Jim Morrison, the god of rock.
Know that it would be untrue. Door City over here.
Next up, we have our first of 2 television shows. This first one was a pretty quick watch. It is the complete limited series of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off that originally premiered on Netflix a few years back. It has all 8 episodes of the limited series. And it is always a pleasure when a Netflix series can get a physical media release. So like I said, all 8 episodes on one disc, courtesy of Universal. For those who don't know about the Scott Pilgrim universe, it started out as a graphic novel, and then it was turned into a very acclaimed cult movie by Edgar Wright. And this animated series kind of takes that as a launch pad to kind of tell its own story. It brings back pretty much all of the vocal talent from the movies, including like Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and just like Chris Evans. So many people in here that are returning from that movie. isn't a strict animated translation of the original story. It starts off like that in the first episode, but then it really turns into like a adaptation with its own energy. Whereas there are some elements of the original story, in which Scott Pilgrim is like a young guy who falls in love with this girl, and like she's kind of like his fantasy dream girl, and then has to kind of like fight all of her exes and stuff in like dramatic fashion. This series kind of like makes her less of a prize to be won and really gives her more agency in terms of like her relationship to her exes and how those relationships resolve. I think it's really clever, and I think if this would have just been like a strict animated adaptation, it would have been a little bit boring. That's kind of something that like the Warner Brothers Watchmen animated movies, that like they were finely executed, but it's just kind of like, why did this need to exist? Whenever I'm watching Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, I think it was very like obvious why it needed to exist, because it really gives fans of this universe a kind of a whole different experience, and you get to engage with certain characters on a whole different kind of level. There's like really hilarious jokes, there's references, there's callbacks to the movie, but you don't have to be a fan of this series to enjoy this like limited series. It's just a really clever show, and while it does have its pacing issues at time, the 8 episodes for the most part pretty like flew by pretty quickly. They're all pretty much under a half an hour, so it's not a huge time investment, but it's very entertaining. And I think anyone who likes Scott Pilgrim versus the World, either the movie or the graphic novels, will enjoy this. Don't have to subscribe to Netflix any longer to watch this. You can have the Blu-ray, all 8 episodes, and you do get some special features, which makes this a really a nice, appealing part of the physical media experience, where every episode is given an audio commentary track from the creators, which gave some really great insights. And you have a stable audio visual presentation, so this all looks really great on Blu-ray and sounds good with the 5.1 audio. I've been waiting for a release like this for ever since it debuted, and luckily we got it. I always love those kind of loopholes where Netflix titles can be like distributed by like Universal or Sony because of the rights issues. So glad to have this on my shelf, and you will be happy to have it on yours if you're a fan of the Scott Pilgrim universe. It's a really good release from Universal.
The girl of my dreams?
It's time to wake up, dude.
I had a dream about that girl again. I didn't care the first time you told me. Care even less now.
Also on television from Universal, we now have the complete series of the sci-fi series Resident Alien. This includes all 4 seasons of the show, starring Alan Tudyk. This is a show that I have covered previously in some capacity, but this just includes all 4 seasons that are also available individually. So here's the first season. The 4th season is also just now debuting on Blu-ray. So if you have been collecting these as they've been released, you can get that on its own. But you also, if you want a nice box that includes everything together, you can now get that as well. So you have options. But really glad to finally own all of this series. It's been a charming one in which about a alien who comes to Earth and kind of finds himself sucked into kind of this like small community and learning like passing himself off as human, trying to keep this secret, but over the seasons, like getting more invested and kind of tied to Earth in specific ways. I don't want to get too spoiler or anything, but just like how his secret evolves and how there's different storylines where it requires Alan Tudyk to like play multiple different characters and everything. I think it's a very special show, and I'm glad that it made it as long as it did. I know there was some question on whether it would even return for a fourth and final season, but luckily it did. And it remain pretty consistent throughout its run. It's just like I love these old school, I mean, this is a newer show, but like old school sci-fi shows like Eureka or Warehouse 13 or anything like that. Like it gives a very special feel, like the Sci-Fi Channel, that other networks just don't always like scratch that itch, but Resident Alien does. So glad to have that all. I believe it's 44 episodes on Blu-ray, and then you also have some deleted scenes on some of these seasons. Not every season have them, but you get deleted scenes for special features. So if you're a fan of this show, if you like a nice sci-fi comedy, check it out on Blu-ray. It's a really good audiovisual presentation, nice like clear HD transfers, and the 5.1 audio sounds really good. So rock solid release from Universal. Happy to have this one. I don't think you'll be disappointed if you pick this one up.
This is awesome. A good mystery, figuring out what happened. Like Law and Order. Kung kung.
All right, look, that's one creepy sumbitch. Y'all see that, right?
Now we start down a series of releases from Radiance Films, aka one of my absolute favorite labels in the game. First off, we have from Takashi Miike, Agitator. This was an early 2000s effort from him. Very violent. It's pretty much just all revolves around like these kind of like Yakuza groups that go back and forth, like committing crimes against one another, because it's at the beginning of the film, you have a very brutal assault of a waitress on kind of enemy territory. It's kind of upsetting to watch, but whenever since the perpetrator is on enemy territory, he kind of gets killed, gunned down, and it kind of like kicks off just like a ping-ponging back and forth of people like saying like, well, you killed our people, now we got to retaliate. And it's basically just 2.5 hours of just like gangland violence and jockeying for power, because there are certain people trying to take over certain like quarters of like territories, and there's like scheming and double dealing and like convincing people to carry out attacks in order to further different power plays and everything. It's pretty wild, but it's very entertaining. Takashi Miike, very prolific director, but always entertaining in his own way. This is the theatrical cut is presented in HD from a master provided by Katakawa. This seems to be a pretty solid master. It's very gritty, but like not like dirty. It's authentic to the original look of the film, while not kind of like overly cleaning it up and all that kind of stuff. But it looks very good for an HD transfer. It was maybe a little soft, but I think that's probably due to the photography in certain sections. But overall, very pleased with like the textures on the clothing and everything. The audio is also solid. No major like pops or hissing or anything like that, which is always great. There is an extended cut that runs over 3 hours. I believe it's a two-part. It was originally presented in 2 parts. That is only presented in standard definition. That is the only version of that available, but that is included as a supplement on this release, in addition to some other special features, which include a commentary track and some interviews. So a really well-rounded piece, including a new interview with Takashi Miike. If you like a violent Yakuza drama, Agitator is worth a look. Very stylish and involving throughout its pretty massive runtime, and even with that runtime, I never found myself bored. So make sure to check that out from Radiance Films. It's a solid release from them. Staying in the world of Asian cinema, we have From another major auteur, Johnny To, we have Romancing in Thin Air, that we're going over to Hong Kong. This is I don't want any of his fans to get mad at me, but the plot of this movie is very interesting because I've seen other movies from him, and they're usually pretty violent action movies that are a lot of fun. And this one isn't that. It has more of the plot of kind of like a Hallmark movie, which I don't say that with like judgment because I love a good Hallmark movie, but I've seen very similar plots on Hallmark to like Christmas movies whenever I was watching this, because it is about an actor, a famous actor, who at the beginning of the movie is left at the altar by his fiance, and he goes into a kind of a remote village to go into hiding, to get away from everything. He's heartbroken, and while he goes and stays at an inn run by a woman whose husband has been missing for years in the Sea of Trees. And she still, like, after all these years, keeps searching for him and everything, and she's just kind of like stuck in this kind of pattern of just like not moving on with her life because she still holds out hope that one day she'll be with her husband. So like this is kind of a very familiar plot in that regard, but I don't, that doesn't mean it's bad because it is executed pretty well. There's some like emotional catharsis here in which like she helps like our lead character kind of get out of his depression, kind of makes him feel useful outside of just being a performer, and just like he in his presence starts to kind of enrich like her little circle of community and everything. And then you get some revelations about like her trauma beyond like what I've told you, and just different like instances of just how they're helping one another, how the power of like art and cinema, and there's a lot going on here that it is a little bit melodramatic, but I did like it. That doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I like both of these performers and their roles. They like bring a nice kind of authenticity to these emotions. It's just whenever you're going to a Johnny To movie, you may not necessarily expect this. So I just want to say that you're not going to get like shootouts or car chases or anything like that. Much more low key, but I did like it. This comes from an HD master provided by Media Asia Films. And it looks good. This isn't a very old movie. I believe it's 2012 or so, somewhere in the early 2010s. And it looks solid. It's a nice HD transfer, no major shortcomings, no digital noise. Everything looks solid. And I believe this is the first time it's been available in the US. So really nice to be able to finally see that for our US viewers. You also get some special features, including a commentary track, interviews, and a visual essay, making a featurette. Pretty well rounded in terms of special features. So if you're a fan of this filmmaker, or just like a solid like melodrama, Romancing in Thin Air, I enjoyed it, and you should check it out from Radiance Films. It's a nice discovery from them and a nice change of pace from all the violence that we're usually getting. Heading over to Poland, I believe. Yes. We have from director. Nope, not gonna try that. We have a famous Polish director whose name I will respectfully not butcher. Okay, there you go. That is the name. You can understand why I am not saying it, because I just can't. This is a very interesting movie. Takes place over a number of decades. It starts out with the kind of violent birth of our main character, and it kind of follows him and showing him kind of getting out of his kind of more lower, like impoverished village upbringing and kind of rising up the ranks to be a like accomplished businessman, but how kind of the world will never fully accept him, and he can never quite shake off his past, and just kind of like making sure people are kind of kept in their places almost, and how your upbringing kind of just like stays in you in certain ways. And it's pretty interesting. I've seen people like even the back cover compare it a little bit to like Citizen Kane. This is, of course, isn't as great as one of the best movies and most acclaimed movies of all time, but I can kind of understand the kind of on a structure level why it is compared to that. I think the really interesting thing about this specific movie is that the cinematography is very unique and intense, almost kind of like first person, like the way it follows these characters. It feels almost like even more intense Malick film at times, but later period Malick. But it's very like it's a very active camera, and it gives the movie a very unique feel, and just going on this journey, which has a lot of kind of very more intense moments. It really kind of puts you in the headspace of this character. It's very effective. I always like whenever I get to check out what Polish cinema has to offer. They usually have like a specific vibe that they're giving off that I click with. And while this isn't necessarily my favorite that I've seen, it is very unique and is one that I won't soon forget. So check out The Dancing Hawk if it interests you at all, if you're interested in Polish cinema or just like unique kind of like human drama with a unique visual look. You can check it out. It has been given a new 4K restoration, and it looks really great. No nicks or scratches, deep black levels, no blown highlights. The colors are nice. Everything is just about as good as you would want it to look. Carried out with great care by Radiance Films. You also get some special features, including a new interview with a film historian, which helps you contextualize a little bit more about the history of the film and the filmmaker and what he's trying to get at thematically, which I think if you don't get that upon a first watch, I think it will enrich future viewings if you watch that. And you also get some short films from the filmmaker, I believe specifically the cinematographer, that are animated, so that's a nice addition as well. So, The Dancing Hawk, a little bit challenging, but worth the challenge if you're up for it. From Radiance Films, glad they put this out.
Parobkiem byłeś, zostaniesz parobkiem ty.
Michał Toporny, przodujący student. Do niedawna małorolny chłop z Rzeszowszczyzny. Budujemy nowy ład. Na nowych ludziach. Tacy jak on mogą zdobyć wszystko.
And my last one from Radiance Films, I think might be one of the only Radiance Films releases that titles that I've seen prior to them releasing it on physical media. So I was proud of myself for finally knowing something they were putting out. We have the Ivan Passer film, Cutter's Way, which I owned previously, still do, from Fun City Editions. They put that out on Blu-ray several years back. And of course, I paid a decent amount for it right before it was going out of print. And now we get this 4K upgrade, which is like, okay, glad I made that investment, but it's a good movie, so I don't mind it too much. But this is a pretty solid kind of like grimy crime movie with John Hurd and Jeff Bridges and other great ensemble players. So I'm a big Jeff Bridges fan, and just seeing him kind of go on this journey. He plays a man who at the beginning of the film witnesses a crime, but doesn't know what he's witnessed, and then he gets accused of the crime, and then he has to take it upon himself to figure out who actually committed the crime, and all signs point to a very wealthy oil baron, I believe, who is within the community that's very respected, and of course, like no one would take it on his word that this man that is so respected is responsible for this woman's death. So he teams up with his Vietnam best friend to kind of like try to track this down. Sometimes he has to be kind of convinced to go down this line of questioning, but it all roads lead to kind of chaos as like things go careening, and especially whenever they team up with the victim's sister and how this all kind of like coalesces together. The John Hurd character, he is traumatized by the war, and he is very erratic in his behavior, and as such he can be a little bit much to handle sometimes, like as from an audience perspective, because he's very much a loose cannon, which can be a little bit grating on my nerves, but he's a very interesting character, and he is performed impeccably by John Hurd. Jeff Bridges is more kind of laid back and stuff, which is not unexpected for Jeff Bridges. But he does a really good job in this role, and they're kind of bouncing off of one another. Their energies, they balance each other very well. And it leads to ultimately a finale that's very memorable and very impactful. And it is a really solid movie. And I was happy to revisit this on 4K, especially since the first time I watched it with my Fun City Editions Blu-ray, I liked it, but some of the character interactions and stuff kind of like either annoyed me or rubbed me the wrong way. And now that I kind of was going into it with the idea that knowing what these characters were and how they acted and everything, I was more prepared for it, and just seeing kind of their intricacies, I ended up liking it more. And I thought it was a nice upgrade visually from that Fun City Editions Blu-ray. This comes from a new 4K scan of the original camera negative in Dolby Vision, and it looks pretty fantastic. Color-wise, everything seems like at a really nice like tone. Everything looks accurate and nuanced and deep black levels, no blown highlights, no nicks or scratches. This has just been treated very well by Radiance Films. You also get a new legacy featurette with a bunch of different people kind of like talking about the legacy of this movie, and just like interpreting it, and just it's a really nice new addition. And I think you also get most of the archival special features. You get a really cool introduction from Jeff Bridges. It's audio only. It's about 5 minutes long, but really great to hear some of his reflections. Some of them were pretty wild, including like his dog like nearly biting the cheek off like one of the producers who was approaching him to like star in the film. Is crazy. But you also get some other special features, including 3 commentary tracks, tons of interviews, and some featurettes. So if you're a fan of Cutter's Way, Radiance Films has given this a nice upgrade on 4K. I think it is worth the investment if you're a fan, because it is a nice upgrade. But if you don't own it at all, this is the way to own it from Radiance Films. They've done a nice job, and I don't think you'll be disappointed if you check it out.
Crushed trachea, fractured skull, 17 years old, cheerleader.
I can't identify a face for you. That's him.
That guy? His car takes it in the shorts within 90 minutes of when the girl's body is found. And you don't find that even remotely intriguing.
So what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna nail the bastard.
So we pretend blackmail, And then when he pays, we go to the police.
If you're right, I'd be careful. You know, very, very careful.
All of that is a preamble to our main stretch of the show, which is our Kino Lorber portion of the show. We have a lot of great titles from them that I'm excited to dig into. Going to start off with some of their more recent theatrical outings, including one that I was pretty sure was going to get nominated for Best Documentary at the Oscars, but just missed the short list, but still very much worth checking out. That is Put Your Soul on Your Hand and Walk. This is a very enlightening, at times brutal, but like rewarding documentary in which the director of this film, the filmmaker, records a series of interviews that she has with a woman from Palestine during kind of the onslaught of the war and everything, and seeing how each interview you get a little bit of insight into what her life is as a Palestinian in the midst of this conflict, and just it's harrowing and just like heartbreaking to see. Like, you get really invested just from these conversations with this young woman, and even getting to know like bits about her family and everything, and you get to know her and everything, and then just how this ultimately develops. It's really gutting, and I think it's a really powerful documentary. It's due to how it is structured. You're not getting a lot of just like outside footage or anything like that, but just a riveting conversation between two people is enough sometimes, and just what it ultimately adds up to. Really glad to be able to check this out. It hurts to watch, but it is a necessary watch just to kind of broaden your perspective. And I'm glad this got put out on Blu-ray from Kino Lorber. Once again, due to the way that it is presented, maybe not the most flashy or like gorgeous looking movie, but I'm really glad this got a nice HD transfer, so it can look as good as it should. And you also get some special features, including a short film and a Q&A from one of the screenings whenever it debuted. So Put Your Soul in Your Hand and Walk. Great documentary, worth checking out, and really glad that this got a Blu-ray release from Kino Lorber, so I appreciate them for that.
I'm a photographer.
Yes, I saw your photos.
Meeting her was like a mirror held in front of me that made me realize how much both our lives are conditioned by walls and wars.
You have many options to die here in South Gaza. You can die by bombing or fear, starvation.
Each of our conversations could be the last one, as Israeli bombs fall everywhere in Gaza all the time.
I miss so much.
Yeah, me too.
So every time we connect and I can see her face, it feels like a miracle.
Next up, we have a few films from some international titles. First up, we have, probably butcher this, Köln 75. This is based on a real-life story about the recording of a famous album by jazz musician Keith Jarrett, I believe in Germany. This is one of the biggest and most acclaimed jazz, like solo jazz albums of all time, and this is kind of more of like a dramatized story of how this concert ended up happening. So you're going from the perspective of this young girl who you see her kind of like falling in love with music, wanting to be in the business, and she's very energetic, and she is helping organize this concert that is like everything is stacked against her in terms of like securing funding for the location, and then trying to get Keith, like Mr. Jarrett, there, and all the obstacles he's facing like on his road to this performance. And there's like technical issues with the piano that he's supposed to be using, and there's just all this stuff going on that's like leading up to this performance, which you don't hear any of the music. It is more so just like the prelude to this major musical moment that a lot of people like have this album and listen to it and consider it one of the best recordings ever. But at the time, whenever it was being recorded, it was just like chaos, and it very nearly didn't happen. And I think it's not a very complicated movie, but it's very energetic and fun and like thrilling at times, even though like the stakes aren't life and death, but you feel for this girl who is so passionate about music and wanting to kind of like not let herself down in her potential and what she knows she can do. It's very rewarding. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to check this one out. I really got a Blu-ray release. Looks very good. And everything's like authentic. Not much in the way of banding, maybe small things here or there, but no major digital noise or pixelization, anything like that. Everything looks solid. You get some interviews, several different interviews in terms of with special features. So nice, well-rounded disc. Kino Lorber. Make sure to check it out. Köln 75.
Wie machst du das bloß? Was? So tun, als ob dir der Laden gehört. Keine Ahnung, ich tue halt so.
How old are you?
25.
Lieben tut man, solange man jung ist.
Ich bin Konzertveranstalter. I'm booking a tour for the Ronnie Scott Trio.
Wenn du in deinem Leben was erreichen willst, dann musst du verdammt noch mal einen anderen Weg einschlagen.
He's a dentist.
Stepping away to a partner label for a title, we have Trifole. So this is from Cohen Media Group, a story about an aging older man who's kind of like starting to kind of like lose his agency and ability to be kind of like a master truffle hunter and like procuring these like delicacies that are worth so much and everything. And him and his dog are just out doing this. There's been some really great documentaries, like one called The Truffle Hunters, that are really kind of dig into this kind of lifestyle. But this is about like his granddaughter who comes to kind of assist him with things. She has her own kind of real life drama going on, but seeing them connect in their own way over this kind of this activity, this calling that kind of brings her back to nature and everything. And it's how seeing her kind of understand like the world of truffles and the kind of like almost kind of dilation of time of how this movie can get a little bit experimental in certain ways, but it's very interesting and just like very thrilling and like beyond how the plot kind of like tantalizes you and it sometimes breaks your heart at certain times. I won't, no spoilers, but there's some things that happen that I was very mad about. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. It's very interesting. I think the world of like procuring and like dealing in truffles is fascinating. So to get this movie and kind of wrap it in kind of like a generational tale and like tale of finding yourself and connecting to nature and all of these kind of different themes and like connections. I love that. And so yeah, it's once again another rewarding movie, another discovery from the International Fair. Cohen Media Group gave this a nice Blu-ray. Looks really solid, no major complaints. Brand new movie, fresh from theaters. Looks really good. In terms of special features, you get a behind-the-scenes featurette. You get some interviews and other featurettes as well. So a nice number of different types of special features. So Trifle, make sure to check that out from Cohen Media Group.
Amo questa terra. Amare questo paese vuol dire non essere soli, sapere che in ogni pietra, in ogni albero c'è qualcosa di te, che anche quando non ci sarai più, parlerà di te.
And my final, more newer, like brand new title from Kino, we have the international submission for, I believe it was Slovenia. This is Little Trouble Girls. This is a kind of coming of age, coming to terms with sexuality movie, which if you've watched my channel, I love a coming of age tale. And this one's a good one. This one, a 16-year-old girl who has like recently joined a choir, and she's very reserved. She's like very stoic, but you can kind of see behind her eyes that she is like kind of teeming with sexual energy, in terms of like her brain is on fire, and she's kind of like, she has so much going on in her mind, but she doesn't know how to channel it, that, especially since her mother is so kind of stern and religious. And she's getting into kind of this group that, like, some of the people in the choir kind of playfully mock her at times, but she gets a really special friend, who, like, one of like kind of the more cool girls that she's very drawn to and has a very complicated relationship with, which great, love that. But just kind of seeing kind of like this journey of like sexuality and like desire, and how this kind of manifests in different ways, and just through the cinematography, especially how this is kind of like, you can kind of get an understanding of what is going on in her head through certain kind of visual motifs. There's certain kind of conversations, like whenever they go off for like a choir trip to kind of a religious like kind of like institution where they're staying, like they get to talk to some nuns, and you get like a nun's perspective on like the like giving up kind of like physical intimacy for like a larger calling, and how that kind of like connects back to different like desires and urges, and how that feeds into your own passions. It's very fascinating, and I like, very good movie. I love this kind of general territory, and it did not let me down. So if you like a coming of age sexuality like movie, Little Trouble Girls, it's handled sensitively but very engrossing, and very much worth checking out, from Kino Lorber. Gorgeous movie that looks great on Blu-ray. Happy it got a Blu-ray release. Sounds good as well. No shortcomings there. And in terms of special features, not really much to go with, just a trailer. So but the movie on Blu-ray looking good and sounding good. No complaints there. So Little Trouble Girls, make sure to check that out.
Zbor je skupna formacija, in če bo vsaka delala nekaj po svoje, bo se razpadalo.
A si že kdaj videla moškega golega?
Ne.
A si se ti že kdaj ljubčkala? Ani to tako greh.
Now's when we start going down the Kino Studio Classics line. First up, we have the 4K debut, Marcel Carné's Port of Shadows with Jean Gabon. This is kind of considered one of the early film noirs, and it has Jean Gabon as a deserter of the war who is like kind of like finds himself in a port town, kind of connects with a young girl who has a lot of drama going on. And this movie is really about kind of like a pot boiler about all the kind of drama that he is kind of like finds himself right in the midst of, in terms of like a lecherous like stepdad, like a boyfriend who may or may not have been taken captive. There are like gangsters who are searching for different people, and it's a lot of stuff going on for this deserter who's just trying to stay alive, but gets a little bit more invested than he planned. Really invigorating movie. I really enjoyed it. Really gorgeous black and white photography that thrives on 4K. This has been given a new 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. It is presented in Dolby Vision. It looks really good. This photography, I think, was made for this format, and it does not disappoint. In terms of like Kino's encoding, it often known to be a little bit shaky. I will be talking about that throughout this episode. but it holds up pretty well here. Not much to complain about. Maybe small things that could have been optimized a little bit better, but overall, one of their better efforts in terms of stability and overall like presentation. You do get some special features, including a commentary track, an introduction from a film historian, and a pretty nice documentary. So overall, Port of Shadows, really glad to catch this, and on 4K no less. Very worthy pickup if you're a fan of international noir. Really great moody movie.
Si tu veux, quand une fille est belle, qu'elle est jeune et puis qu'elle veut vivre, ben, c'est comme un homme qui essaie d'être libre. Tout le monde est contre, comme une meute. Je le buterai. Je le buterai.
C'est la seule chose que j'aime. Tout le reste peut crever.
Un homme et une femme, ça peut pas s'entendre.
Ils peuvent peut-être pas s'entendre, mais ils peuvent s'aimer.
Next up on Blu-ray, we have a Jack Benny Comedy Classics double feature of Man About Town and Actresses and Models. First up, we have Artists and Models, not Actresses and Models, my apologies. Artists and Models is the first film that is presented on this disc, in which Jack Benny plays kind of an account executive looking for, like, trying to hook his client up with, like, kind of like the next a big thing so he can land a big account and make a bunch of money. But along the way, he kind of finds himself mixed up in with two different women, one who he is intending to marry and another who he kind of like ends up falling for, that's outside of this woman. It's kind of a complicated kind of love triangle, love square type situation. But one of the women is Ida Lupino in one of her younger roles. She does a great job. But it's the other lady, I don't quite know her name, but she was a really pleasant addition to this movie, and seeing Jack Benny's rapport with her, she had a very kind of calm, confident demeanor, which I really appreciated. But everyone, lot of laughs to be had in here, and misrepresentation, misunderstandings with intent. And I don't know, I haven't watched a lot of Jack Benny movies, but I did quite enjoy this. And Man About Town, not as much as Artists and Models, but Man About Town, pretty solid movie. That one involves kind of a similar type of societal atmosphere. In this one, Jack Benny gets himself he's trying to make his girlfriend jealous, and he ends up getting kind of involved in kind of a high society affair where women are using him to make their husbands jealous, but this is starting to escalate to potential violent means, and he kind of has to get himself out of this jam he's got himself in. But overall, it's pretty fun. I liked both of these, and neither of these are noted as coming from a new HD transfer, but they looked pretty solid for what they are. It might be a little bit of an older transfer, but nothing major, no major deterioration or damage. Minor specs here and there, but overall, I thought it was mostly a pleasing looking presentation. Maybe a little bit of a hollow dialogue at times, but for movies from the late 1930s, you can't fault it too much for its audio quality. It sounds about as good as it can. And overall, I think it holds together pretty well. Each film gets audio commentary track, which is great, and then you get some trailers. But for two films, both of which are plus or minus a few minutes of an hour and a half, it's a good value. If you're a fan of Jack Benny, well worth picking up. I had fun with both of these. I could see myself rewatching both of them. I had a good time. So this Jack Benny Comedy Classics double feature, make sure to check it out. It's a pretty fun time.
And right along with all the music and fun, you'll love this unusual story. For just like Jerry says, this one has a brand new twist to it.
Oh, I
I gotta get new soles.
We absolutely guarantee you'll be all tied up in knots, too, just from laughing so hard at those ex-Kangaroo Patrol members, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis.
Imitator who daubs and dabbles with the brushes. To the gals who look so fetching, to the guys who do the sketching, we like to give a hip hip hooray. We like to tip it over way. To the artists with the
And speaking of value, we have the Peter Sellers Early Classics Collection. Now, unlike the one I just spoke about, this is actually bringing together 5 films, 4 of which I've talked about previously. So we have Man in a Cocked Hat, I'm Alright Jack, Heavens Above, Two-Way Stretch, and The Wrong Arm of the Law. The only one I haven't talked in depth about is Man in a Cocked Hat. But each of these I've enjoyed to various degrees in the past. I especially liked like Heavens Above, which found Peter Sellers taking over kind of like a priest role unexpectedly and kind of like really wreaking havoc on a small town. And then you got like some cool union, like anti-business stuff going on in I'm Alright Jack. You have him doing some crime related things in Two-Way Stretch and Wrong Arm of the Law. And Man in a Cocked Hat, which is the one I haven't dug into as much on previous episodes. That one involves like kind of a misunderstanding about like a country that had been been under the rule of, I believe, England, but no one told the country that that England had given up its rule, and they still had an ambassador there. So it kind of leads to this kind of whole satire about like colonialism and representation of this country that has like valuable resources that they want to exploit, and it's very humorous and hilarious. I'm not just saying this because Peter Sellers is also in this, but it kind of reminded me like satirically of like Doctor Strangelove, like some of the conversations that were being had. And with Terry Thomas in here, like he's always a big for a laugh. So good time. So all of these discs are the exact same as their individual counterparts. So if you want to buy all 5 of these individually, for just like all their distinct cover art and everything, you can do that. But if you just want shelf friendly packaging and everything, and maybe a little bit of a discount, you can get these all 5 in one. The Man in the Cocked Hat and Wrong Arm of the Law both got 4K scans of the original negatives. The other 3, I believe, are older masters, but all of these look really nice and solid. Every one of them gets a commentary track, and then a few of them get a few additional featurettes, but at the bare minimum, they each get a commentary track. So if you're a Peter Sellers fan, and you want them all in one fell swoop, you don't want to have to deal with like picking each of them up individually, just get this early classics collection. You won't be disappointed, and you won't be taking up a lot of shelf space, which for me, I'm always stressing on shelf space, so happy to have this in my collection. So make sure to check it out if you're a Peter Sellers fan.
Oh. My daughter Cynthia works here spindle polishing.
I'm all right, Jack. I'm okay. That was the message for today. So count up your lolly, feather your nest.
Why don't you tell him to photograph something worthwhile?
It's my back. I'll do the same for you, Jack. That's the message for today. Well, where are you?
Brothers, please, brothers! Use your self-control!
Sticking in the comedy realm, but jumping forward a few decades, we have A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon, starring River Phoenix. And people like Ione Skye and Meredith Salinger. You get a young Matthew Perry. And this is a a really amusing movie about like a kid right on the verge of graduating high school. Um, Almost like kind of Ferris Bueller-esque, in which like he's kind of like a cool guy. He's always kind of getting in. He's like a hornier Ferris Bueller, if that's possible. In which he's like always kind of like flirting with girls, picking them up, and like he always has kind of like his way into just like he has like his girlfriend, but he's also talking to other women, and he's just kind of all like he's like, this is a cool guy, always getting things done and everything. But he's reaching the end of his high school career. He doesn't know if he's gonna be able to like remain with his girlfriend. He has like people who are close to him who are going to be moving away. His dad expects him to go to a college, like he will pay for a college for him if he goes to his alma mater, but he doesn't want to go where his father went. It's mostly comedy driven, but with a little bit of like undercurrent of melodrama of just like, what is he, this guy who's been kind of carefree for so many years, what's going to happen to him as it's all kind of coming like into reality, that like things are coming to a close on his high school career, and what's going to happen to him. But still very funny, very palatable. It's not like one of those kind of like gross out movies. It's not like, I don't even think you see any nudity in here, but it's just kind of like a fun kind of high school like crazy night movie, crazy day and night movie. But River Phoenix, very charismatic. All the women in here are very charming and stuff, and all the other ensemble players are great as well. So like, I had a good time with it. It's not going to like join the ranks of like my absolute favorite 80s movies, but just for a good time with like people that I know and like, I enjoyed myself, and it wasn't too offensive or anything like that. So that's always good. It's not noted as being from a new master or anything, and you can tell it's has a little bit of age to it. Nothing too egregious. It still looks good, but doesn't seem to just be given like a fresh scan or anything. But the older master holds up well, and so no major disappointments there. You do get a commentary track on here and a trailer. If you are a fan of any of these people, or just like a good high school movie, A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon, worth checking out. It's one that I hadn't heard of, but I was very glad to discover.
What are you doing?
You make me want to vomit.
Are you gonna be all right?
Don't worry.
Worry.
A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon.
And heading to something a little bit different, we have Billy Dee Williams and Scott Joplin, about the famous musician who kind of like he wrote some of the most famous like compositions of all time, and just seeing kind of his journey from being kind of like an unknown guy to kind of getting discovered at like dueling like piano like gigs, and like working his way out of like kind of more like brothels and juke joints and stuff, and like kind of like working his way up to kind of like a world renowned musician, and kind of trying to gain the respect of an audience who like wanted to dismiss him for the type of music that he was playing, and not realizing this full range of his talents, and like his like romantic affairs and business dealings. There's a lot of stuff in here, but all done with that kind of like nice 70s like kind of like aura, in which it's like a little gritty, but like traditional enough, and like given like the right kind of like studio push to like has nice production value and everything. It kind of fits squarely in that mold, which I like, and is executed well. And Billy Dee Williams, really glad to see him in this type of role, giving him like a pretty like substantial range to kind of engage in, which isn't something I've like seen a lot from him. Granted, I haven't seen everything that Billy Dee Williams has done, but just to see him get like a little bit more like to play with was a lot of fun, and I think he was a very talented performer. Once again, another one that's not listed as coming from a new HD transfer, but holds up very well. Some softness here and there, but overall seems to hold together nicely. Nice audio. You do get some special features, including a commentary track and a trailer. Overall, happy with this one. It's a nice discovery. Scott Joplin, very much worth checking out.
Well, I don't think much of this uptown stuff. Mess around with piano scores. Man any good, he plays his music.
You are the author of America's truly native music. I'm gonna make the people know it.
They did know it, then and now.
If you're interested in the subject, going even further in time to 1998, we have Stephen Frears' drama High Low Country with Woody Harrelson, Billy Crudup, Patricia Arquette, Penelope Cruz, Cole Hauser, Ola, Sam Elliott, without a big mustache, which was disappointing, but I enjoyed checking this one out. Set a little bit after the end of World War II. You have Billy Crudup as a soldier coming back from war, trying to get like kind of established in kind of like big sky country, trying to learn to work the cattle and ranching and stuff like that. But this all leads to him kind of being in the orbit of Patricia Arquette's character, who is married to the ranch foreman, which the ranch is owned by Sam Elliott's character. So his foreman's wife is played by Patricia Arquette, who at first starts to get into a little thing with Billy Crudup, but then whenever Woody Harrelson shows up, who is Billy Crudup's best friend, Woody does not know that they already have something going on. He starts something with Patricia Arquette's character. So a lot of people are going after Patricia Arquette's character, and at the same time, Penelope Cruz is also trying to get something going with Billy Crudup's character. So there's so many romantic entanglements in which like Billy's character is like obsessed with Patricia Arquette's character, and like he likes Penelope Cruz's character, but just is more obsessed with Patricia Arquette. Which, if you have Penelope Cruz in your life and she's just like basically begging you to love her, you love that woman. What is wrong with you? But that's beside the point. It's just there's a lot going on here, and like tested friendships and all that kind of stuff. So good old fashioned melodrama, and card games, cattle wrestling, like all kinds of stuff going on here. So if that sounds like a fun time to you, you'll love the drama in High Low Country. Really good old fashioned melodrama. And another one for my Woody Harrelson tally, which he seems to always be in like one of my top watched actors of any given year, because he just shows up in all kinds of random things. Like I know I already watched him in like the the Now You See Me sequel that I covered a few weeks ago. So like I'm sure he's already way up there in his representation, but always good to see him. And this was a new one I hadn't seen before, so that was fun. So like all these actors, and the movie is pretty entertaining as well. A little bit ridiculous at times, but entertaining. And yeah, this, once again, not listed as coming from a new HD transfer. Still holds up pretty well. No major drawbacks. Maybe a little bit of like slight age and wear and everything, but overall holds up pretty well. And it's just nice to get this on Blu-ray. Holds up well enough. Sound is good in the 5.1 sound. Commentary track and a trailer. So High Low Country, if you like these performers and you don't mind a little bit of melodrama, worth checking out.
Ran in there the day I got back. Started with a little small talk about the weather, and then
I want to run away with you someplace where no one can find us.
Go and get Mona back here.
He's my best friend, and there ain't nothing I wouldn't do for him.
Your friend is stealing a man's wife.
One look at her, you know she's worth the risk.
Next up, we have the beloved romance, Somewhere in Time, getting a 4K upgrade, starring Christopher Reeve aka our original Superman, and Jane Seymour. I'd been wanting to see this for a while, and it did not disappoint. Christopher Reeve playing a man who, at the beginning of the movie, gets visited by an older woman urging him to like come back to her. Kind of a cryptic message, and then years later he kind of realizes that he thinks that she might have been the older version of this woman who is an actress back in the day, and he kind of becomes obsessed with the idea of like time travel and going back to her and everything. And this story is like his efforts to go back and be with this woman and like find love with her. And it's a really fascinating movie, and I like Christopher Reeve as Superman, but seeing him in more of a grounded role like this was very rewarding. Jane Seymour is amazing in this, written by Richard Matheson. You have Christopher Plummer as Jane Seymour's manager, who's like always creating trouble. It's heartbreaking at times, but very romantic, and just like the chemistry between these two, which Jane Seymour said like a few years back, like long after Chris and his wife had passed away, that they actually like fell in love on this set. But then like once he found out that his ex was pregnant and he went back to her, they called off. But like there was some real passion here on set. So that translated to the screen, and good time. So I have never owned this previously, but I have heard and researched that the previous Blu-ray was subpar from Universal, and especially in some of the color choices and the grading and everything. From what I can tell, this new 4K scan of the original camera negative rectifies that quite handily. Everything looks pretty natural in terms of like the colors, like how the past is represented compared to the present, and everything looks very nice. And like even though there are different cinematographic choices and how things are shot, the color remains consistent and nice and looks good. It looks good. Sound is solid as well. And you get a good number of special features, including 3 commentary tracks. 2 are new, 1 is archival. You get a 64-minute documentary on the movie and an additional featurette, and a trailer. So if you're a fan of this movie, I think you'll be very pleased with it. The 4K presentation in Dolby Vision is quite good. Very minor encoding things here and there that could have been optimized, but it's Kino. What are you going to do? But overall, pretty solid presentation. This isn't one of the worst Kino discs. It holds up pretty well, and I think most will be pleased if they're not like super nitpicky. I think it's a really solid release, and people should be pretty pleased with this. From a movie that I think would have been stuck on DVD and kind of hard to... That is K2, starring Michael Biehn and Matt Craven. This is a mountain climbing movie. 2 friends who join up as a part of a team on an expedition, and Michael Biehn's character is really kind of a cocky guy who's like really determined to like be the first to ascend this peak, and Matt Craven's more of a family man, but he's also very invested in this, but very much gets pushed into it by his friend. And there's like people on the team who like consider them more outsiders. There's conflict in like amongst different team members and everything, but for the most part, this is a intense like survival drama, and it's like kind of sports drama with like the mountain climbing and then like trying to survive the elements, all this kind of stuff. Very entertaining movie. I think it's really well done, and I don't know why it isn't more known in terms of like mountain climbing movie. Like it's not one that I even heard of before Kino announced it. And I saw some people who were like had been familiar with the movie since it came out, very excited about it, but just like that it hadn't got a proper release in quite a while was surprising. So I'm glad it got a 4K upgrade. What I have learned is there are 2 cuts of the movies. One's a little bit longer, and each cut has a different composer, because like the original composer, Chaz Jankel, I believe that is the one that is on here. That is the person who is credited in the opening credits. There's also a Hans Zimmer score, which people say is not as good as the Jankel score, but I think it is attached to the extended version, which is not included on this disc. It's just the original theatrical version. So I think it's a trade-off for some people where they don't get the extended cut, but they do get the score that a lot of people prefer. But if you're a Hans Zimmer fan, you might be disappointed that you don't get to hear his score. So the main thing is it's incomplete, but overall it's still a solid presentation. Encoding-wise, a little iffy here and there, more so than some of the other titles I talked about. But the restoration is pretty good, but the execution isn't always a 10 out of 10. It dips in points, but overall it's solid. Soundtrack-wise, it sounds good as well. No hollowness or shortcomings and stuff like that. But this doesn't. It comes from a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. Comes with a commentary track and an interview with the director. So K2. If you like mountain climbing films, worth checking out. It has some exhilarating moments. Michael Biehn's character can be a little bit ridiculous, but he's ridiculous in a way that you still like him. So we're checking out K2. Winding down with some thrills. Next up, we have the 4K upgrade of Kenneth Branagh's Dead Again. This is kind of like more of a gothic story in which Emma Thompson plays a woman who shows up one day, does not remember who she is, and keeps having visions of herself in the past. And you kind of come to learn that either you believe in more supernatural things, or that a woman who just looked like her in the past has been killed, and learning about what actually happened with her whilst dealing with her memory issues in the present and how she is connected to this past event. And you have Kenneth Branagh also starring in here as kind of like a private eye, like investigator who's trying to help her. And he has kind of a wide array of people who he kind of collaborates with. You get a small role with like Robin Williams. You got Andy Garcia in the past. You got Derek Jacobi in the present, kind of doing like his hypnosis stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on, but it's, if you want kind of like a gothic mystery, this one's pretty solid. I had just watched this movie, I think, for the first time last year with my old Paramount Blu-ray, but I was glad to revisit on 4K because I did find myself, I seem to say this a lot, I did find myself liking it more on a rewatch, locking in especially to Emma Thompson's performance. She's really great. I love the small performance from Robin Williams. There's some good stuff going on here, and I think it's a pretty interesting movie. This does look better than my old Paramount Blu-ray. I think it's a nice upgrade. This does come from a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative, approved by director Kenneth Branagh. Looks really good. Transfer, like the restoration looks nice. Once again, encoding wise, maybe could be a little bit better, but not the worst. Maybe just a little bit of like mushy grain here and there, but nothing too egregious. Overall, this holds together pretty well. Sounds good. 2 commentary tracks and a trailer. Overall, if you like Dead Again, I think this is the way to own it. The 4K bump does a nice job with this. And so yeah, Dead Again, make sure to check that out.
This is exactly what happened with Roman and Margaret.
I'm not Roman.
He had a pair of scissors.
To be the man who ended her life
Roman?
more than 40 years ago.
He was gonna kill me.
You saw Mr. Church in the past.
I'm not Roman!
You were in the house.
You take this, you sleep with it, you put it under your pillow, I come near you, you blow my head off, right?
I would never hurt you.
How am I supposed to keep him away? I mean, he really wants to see me.
You burn somebody in one life, they get a chance to burn you back in this one. It's a karmic credit plan. Buy now, pay forever.
And finally, another acclaimed filmmaker, we have Guillermo del Toro's Mimic on 4K. Now, admittedly, not one of the most acclaimed from Guillermo del Toro, but still a very important part of his early career. Still him dealing with creatures, but this was kind of like more of a disappointing collaboration for him because he had to work with Harvey Weinstein, who kind of like forced him down different directions that he did not necessarily approve of. And so we got the theatrical cut, which he kind of disowned. This is reversible cover art. And then years later on Blu-ray, we got a director's cut. And this, so very, very surprisingly for Kino, has both. So we got the director's cut on 4K on its own disc. We got the theatrical cut on 4K in its own disc, and then both of them together on a Blu-ray disc with the special features. So that was pretty mind-blowing that they included both cuts in 4K, but I love that. There's so many examples of when they just choose one cut over the other, like Tropic Thunder, like Reindeer Games, so many, like Paul, so many, like Cowboys and Aliens, so many options, examples where they only included one cut on 4K. So Mimic, I'm glad it's the exception. A story about, at the beginning of the film, there's like kind of a modern plague going around in which like these beetles are causing like an illness within children. There's a scientist who comes up with a way to kind of get rid of this kind of pestilence. Through like genetic means. They genetically manufacture this bug that is supposed to die within 6 months after kind of like being introduced to the environment and like introducing something that will eventually kill all of these things. Which that work is successful. That kind of like modern plague goes away after all these things are killed. But these things that have been engineered do not die after 6 months, and then you meet up with them years later, and they have basically grown into like humanoid bug creatures that are like killing people. So it's a really like ridiculous creature feature, but it is taken seriously by Guillermo, and just like his while it doesn't all completely work for me, I do think it's an entertaining enough creature feature in which like our kind of scientists are trying to investigate what is going on, how they like are arguing about like what's even possible, and then trying to like take out this like these modified bugs that are like humanoid and wreaking havoc. So lower tier Guillermo, but still very interesting and a worthy spot in his overall filmography. And so don't overlook it. This 4K release is the first time I've owned this. Both 4K releases are 4K scans of the original camera negative or 4K masters have been approved by Guillermo del Toro. Transfer wise, everything should look solid. Once again, like encoding wise, can be a little hit or miss, but there's a lot of darkness in this, and I think usually the film like encode suffers the most on Kino releases and like brighter skies or highlights or stuff. But with so much darkness, you won't notice a lot of like shakiness, especially with like deep black levels and stuff. So overall, I think it's a pretty solid transfer for this movie in particular. Both cuts seem to be equal quality. You get a commentary track ported over from Guillermo from a previous release, and you get a new cut on the theatrical cut from some film historians and everything. So you get 2 commentary tracks, one for each cut. you get featurettes and deleted scenes and gag reels that are carried over from previous releases. So overall, if you want a release of Mimic, this is the ultimate one at this moment. And it's like I said, not the best Guillermo movie, but still very entertaining as a creature feature. And if you just want to see some fairly well-known actors like Mira Sorvino, Josh Brolin, F. Murray Abraham, Charles S. Dutton, up against some humanoid creature killers, check out Mimic. You'll have a fun time. And the 4K release is solid.
That thing has been around. How come nobody's ever seen it?
I think we have.
You see the size of that thing?
We changed its DNA.
Survive this.
That is my show. I hope you have found something that you're interested in. If so, let me know what you're what you're gonna check out. I always love hearing what piques your interest and everything. It's always so much fun. If you are going to pick something up, I will reiterate, please use our links in the description. That does help the show, and it costs you nothing extra. If you don't, I still love you, but if you do, I love you extra. If there's something you want me to talk about in a future episode, make sure to leave that in the comments as well. Always happy to talk about anything that you want me to. Make sure to share this with anyone that you know loves physical media or you think should love physical media. All the support is very, very much appreciated. I appreciate everyone who tunes in every week. I really enjoy doing this, and I will be back again next week doing it once again. But until next time, enjoy these movies.
God of Rock.
Oh. Door City over here.
Yeah.